Hare Krishna. So we welcome you all for this Wednesday English Bhagavad-gita session. Today we are going to discuss Srimad Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter number 13, verse number 4, and this chapter entitles Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness. So the verse will be there in the board, so please recite after us. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikihi Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadrikcha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sa Cha Yo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Me Shrinu Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavascha Tat Samasena Me Shrinu Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavascha Tat Samasena Me Shrinu Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Me Shrinu. Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Me Shrinu. Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Me Shrinu. Tat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Me Shrinu. Yat Kshetram Yaccha Yadriksha Yadvikari Yatascha Yat Sachayo Yat Prabhavasya Tat Samasena Me Shrinu. Anybody from backside would like to recite? Okay. Word to word meaning? Tat, that. Kshetram, field of activities. Yat, what. Cha, also. Yadrik, as it is. Cha, also. Yat, having what. Vikari, changes. Yatah, from which. Cha, also, yat, what, sah, he, cha, also, yah, who, yat, having what, prabhavah, influence, cha, also, tat, that, samasena, in summary, may, from me, shrinu, understand. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. So please recite this translation after me. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Purport. The Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul, their different influences, their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad-gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everybody to be one with the individual soul, the jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyaham Shri Guraho Shri Utapad Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patita Nama Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So it's a very important subject matter, Srimad Bhagavad-gita. And we are discussing this chapter 13, which talks about the nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. Certainly, if one wants to live a life happily, so he has to understand his own nature, the nature of surrounding, the nature of people who are there with him, and about the controller or about the creator, the one who is creating everything. So we have to understand everything. So that's why Lord Krishna here is going to explain in Bhagavad-gita that what are the different answers to all these questions. First of all, we have to know why this topic is coming, why this description is coming first of all. So we have to go back just 1-2 slokas back, where Arjuna is asking some questions to Lord Krishna. So Arjuna has asked some questions. He has inquired about 6 topics. So Arjuna is asking, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti." That means nature. Also Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge. So these are the 6 topics which Arjuna is inquiring from Lord Krishna. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is answering them one by one. First of all, he has answered that this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field. So because in today's verse we are going to discuss about, there were many terms were coming, field of activities, knower of the field of activities. So first of all, we have to understand what Lord Krishna has informed us. So he is saying that this body is actually called as field. And one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. So there are 2 types of knower of the field. First are we, because we also know this body, we know our body. But we also know that we do not know our body in fullest extent. So there is Lord Krishna, or you can say, if you don't want to name it, so you can say the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is also the knower of the field. And he is not only the knower of the field which belongs to me, but he is knower of everyone's body, that is every field of activities. So Lord Krishna is, in that way, he is the ultimate knower of all these activities. Next then he says, "O sign of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies." That's what the next thing is. You yourself are the knower of your body, but Lord Krishna is describing that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. So because Arjuna has also inquired what is knowledge. So knowledge means to understand this body and to understand the knower of the body. So because I am the knower of the body, that is one thing. But Krishna is also knower of this body, that we have to understand. So first of all, we have to understand that this body is field of activity and Krishna is the knower of this field of activity. So this thing is called as knowledge. That is my opinion. So that is Lord Krishna's opinion. It's not like some random person is giving his own opinion, his own mundane theory, but it is Lord Krishna is saying that it is my opinion. And when Krishna is giving some opinion, so there is no one who can challenge that opinion. So that we have to accept as it is. Then comes today's verse, where Lord Krishna is now going to describe all this information, whatever he has, what the knowledge which he has given. So he is going to describe this knowledge. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity. SriSriRadhaRasbihari Bhagwan ki jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki jai, Shri Gaunitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the doors will be open at 8:30, so please be seated for the class, those who are there for taking darshan of the Lord. Hare Krishna. So Lord Krishna is saying in this verse, now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are. There are some questions which Lord Krishna is going to answer here. First is saying about the field of activity, that is this body. Second, how it is constituted. So how this body is made up of, what are the different materials, what are the different elements which makes this body, what its changes are. There are 6 types of changes. Any physical or any material thing goes on. There are 6 kind of changes. First is birth, second is growth, third is maintenance, fourth is reproduction, fifth is dwindling, and sixth is death. So these are the 6 changes any kind of material body, any body, whatever you see. So like even a flower, even a fruit, so they all go through with this 6 kind of changes. First birth, then growth, then maintenance, then reproduction, that is creating their own byproducts, and then dwindling, so it starts getting degraded, and the end is death. So these are the 6 changes. Then Lord Krishna is saying whence it is produced. When was the time when this body was produced? Who that knower of the field of activities is? So as we already discussed, there are 2 knower of the field of activities. One is the living entity and the second is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or in a different term we can say one is soul and another is super soul. And what his influences are. So what are the influences of the field of activities, influences of the body? So these are constituted in this chapter as nature, the enjoyer, and the consciousness. So when we discuss about the body, about the elements of the body, about all these influences, so then we are going to discuss about the nature. When we discuss about who is the enjoyer, so that comes under who is the knower of the field of activities. So there comes this part as enjoyer. If I am the knower of the field of activities, if I am the knower of this body, so certainly I am the enjoyer of the body in certain way, in limited way. But Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is knower for every field of activities. So he is the supreme enjoyer. So he is actually the supreme enjoyer of this body. So I am not in all and all. I am not only the enjoyer in this whole world. There are so many different living entities are there. They want to enjoy. But ultimately Lord Krishna is the original enjoyer. He is the real enjoyer. And then comes the consciousness. The consciousness is what the influence that soul has. So how this all things are constituted, how these all 3, nature, enjoyer and consciousness, these all 3 are entangled together, and how we are functioning in this world. So that is this chapter all about. So I will be reading this purport line by line, and we will be seeing there are so many topics which Lord Krishna is going to inform us. He is going to give us knowledge. So the Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. When we read this phrase, this term, constitutional position, that we have to understand who we actually are. So in first and second verse in purport, Srila Prabhupada has already described that the living entity, its constitutional position is to remain humble servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the living entity is servant and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is master. That is our constitutional positions. Constitutional position in different, in easy word, what we can say that kind of position which can never be changed. So our position as servant can never be changed in any kind of activity, any place, any situation, any time. You can see that the living entity is always serving someone. Either he is serving his parents, family members, he is serving himself, even his friends, even his country. So in a different way, the living entity is serving so many people. And if not, we find that, if suppose you find that if somebody is not serving anyone, so he might be serving his pet animals, his dogs. So people are keeping the pets and they are serving them. But we have to understand whose actual servant we are. What is our constitutional position? That is to be servant. But of whom? So that is the main question. So that question is answered again here, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original master and we are servant of him. One has to know how this body is constituted. There are different elements which make this body. So if we talk about this material body, the body which we can see, so this is made up of 5 elements. So which is made up of 5 elements that we all know, that earth, water, air, fire and ether. These are the 5 elements which constitute this material body. Apart from that, there is subtle body which is also material. So that is constituted by false ego, mind and intelligence. So these are the elements by which the body is constituted. So that also will be described later. The materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working. Can you say that your body is working under your control? Can we say that? Yeah, little bit control we can have. Like suppose I am eating and now I am not feeling to eat more, so I can stop. Suppose I am sleeping and I want to get up now, so I can wake up, I can get up. So that is like little bit control I have. Suppose I am hungry and I am not getting food, so I can control a bit, so that whenever I'll get some food, I can take that prasad. So till that time I can control. So some control we can have, but can you control for unlimited time? Can you control your hunger for 4, 5, 6 days? Okay, one day it's okay. We are doing some fasting. 2 days, chalo kuch mila nahi. 3 days, bahut ho gaya. So what? So we can eat anything. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How many days you can control over you can have your control over the hunger? Similarly, the sleep. Can you remain awake for a longer time? For 4, 5 days, 10 days? So do we have full control over our body? No. We'll start feeling weak and we'll become ill after some time if we start doing such kind of thing. Whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead has full control over our body, my body, your body, everyone's body. What we speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even the pure devotees like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, they also had control over their body. When we read about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, how he used to spend his whole day. So he used to hardly sleep for 2 hours. And hardly he used to eat, means very little. And 24 hours these devotees were engaged in Lord Krishna's service, in writing books, in preaching, in distributing books, in constructing temple, in collecting donations, so many things. Even Srila Prabhupada at the age of 80, he used to work so hard. For whom? For Lord Krishna. And how much time he used to take for himself? Very little. Sometimes he used to sleep for 1 hour, sometime 1.5 hours. Is it possible for us? No. Even the devotees, sometimes they don't sleep also. And they are 24 hours they are engaged in the service of Lord. That's what the potency the devotees receive from the Supreme Lord. That's what we are discussing here. That we, because we are very temporary controller of this body, that too very limited controller. So we don't have fullest control over this body. And because we are so much entangled in the material activities, so because of that, we have forgotten our own potency as the soul. And that's why we are not receiving that potency from the Supreme Lord, which these pure devotees are receiving. Next, what Lord Krishna will be going to discuss, how the changes are taking place. As we discussed, there are 6 types of changes everyone is going through. But how these changes are taking place, how it is happening? By the direction of the nature. And whose nature it is? That is also of Lord Krishna. Where from the changes are coming? So apparently we can see these changes are coming from this nature. But ultimately everything, Sarva Karana Karanam, is Lord Krishna. So these changes are coming from him. What the causes are? So the ultimate cause is Lord Krishna again. What the reasons are? What the ultimate goal of the individual soul is. So what we are doing here, suffering in this temporary body, what is our ultimate goal of this life, if we are getting this human form of life? So there has to be some purpose. Nothing is created in this world without any purpose. Even a small device is also created with a purpose. If you have a camera, so camera has a certain purpose. If you have a mobile phone, so there has some certain purpose. Like here is Kartal, so it has some purpose. There is a microphone, so that has some purpose. Every creation has a particular design and some purpose. Without purpose, there is nothing in this world. So if we are here in this world, existing, living, and sometimes suffering, sometimes enjoying, but there has to be some purpose of our life. If we don't know, if we forget that purpose of our life, so then there is no difference between living like a cats and dogs, or living like some animals, and living this human form of life. So that's why Srila Prabhupada has stressed a lot for this point, that we have to understand our purpose of life. If we do not know that purpose of life, then this human form of life is going to get wasted. So, if Lord Krishna is giving us such a wonderful boon, that is in the form of human form of life, and if we do not realize what is the benediction, what is the benefit of this human form of life, so then what we are doing, we are simply wasting. So even our acharyas, they write the song as Manushya Janama Paiya Radha Krishna Na Bhajiya Janiya Shunya Bisha Khainu. If you have got this human form of life, and if you are not worshipping Sri Sri Radha Krishna, so then what you are doing? You are knowingly drinking the poison. So any insane person only can do such kind of activity. Somebody who is mad, somebody who is insane, somebody who has lost his all intelligence, he will drink poison knowingly. There are many people who commit suicide. They drink poison. Why? Because they are mad, they are insane. They are not in stable life. They are not living stable life. That's why they are doing such kind of thing. And if someone who is so foolish that he is about to drink poison, so what you can say to him? Knowingly he is committing suicide. It's like similar thing. If you get this human form of life and you do not worship Radha and Krishna, if you get this human form of life and if you do not chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So if you are not chanting this, then what you are doing? You are drinking poison. So if you can say that what kind of poison it is, it's not affecting me at all. So it's not affecting you at all in this form of this material body, but it is affecting you spiritually. And if we are continuously drinking this poison again and again, so what will happen? The soul, which can never die, according to Bhagavad-gita, can also die. The soul will die because you are not giving the food to the soul. The soul also wants some food. What kind of food it wants? It wants the food in the form of Krishna Katha. It wants the food in the form of the holy name. It wants the food in the form of the deity darshan, prasadam, devotee association, spiritual books. So these all are the foods of the soul. But if we are not giving if we are keeping the soul hungry, what will happen? Okay, it's okay that soul can never die. But the spiritual potency of the soul will be finished because we are not giving any kind of support to the soul. It is said that everyone is having a good dog and bad dog within him. So the kind of dog you are feeding inside you will prevail. If you are feeding good dog inside you, so it will help you to protect. And if you are feeding the bad dog inside you, so then what will it will do? It will kill the good dog and it will just simply make you more entangled in this material life. So similarly, we have to focus on this point. We have to give very utmost attention that whom we are feeding, what kind of food we are taking. Not only the food which we are taking from the tongue, but also from the eyes, from ears, from nose, from skin, everywhere. What kind of food we are taking? Are we taking spiritual food or are we taking simply material food? So as Srila Prabhupada gives example, there are many examples he gives. That if suppose a person who is driving the car is only cleaning the car, is putting the fuel inside the car, but he himself is not eating. Or if you are not giving any food to the driver, simply you are taking care of the car, then what will happen after some time? The driver, because out of hunger, he will die. So then who will drive the car? There is no one who can drive. Similarly, we have to take care of the driver, that is the soul, as well as the body. But taking care of the body, that requires little effort. But taking care of the soul, that is very important thing. That we have to take care every day. Every day we have to chant. Every day we have to read Bhagavad-gita. Every day we have to come to temple and take darshan of the Lord. These are the spiritual food which we can take. So that's what Lord Krishna is saying. What the ultimate goal of the individual soul is? To go back home, back to Godhead. What is the ultimate goal of a lost child? To again meet his parents. If you help that lost child to meet with his parents, so that will be his utmost benefit, that will be his utmost welfare, and that's what his ultimate goal of the life is. Similarly for the soul, because he has lost his destination, because he has forgotten his actual relationship with the Supreme Lord, that the Supreme Lord is his father, his dear father, who is waiting for him. So that is what our ultimate destination is, to realize this fact that Lord Krishna is our dear father and is waiting for us in the spiritual world, so that when we will turn toward him and when we will go back home, back to Godhead, so that he can receive us very warmly. And what the actual form of the individual soul is? What is the actual form of the individual soul is? That is very similar to the super soul, because the soul is part and parcel of the super soul. So the soul has similar form, and this all information, this all knowledge which Lord Krishna is going to describe after some time. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul. This is very important point, that we have to very properly know this fact, that there is clear-cut difference between the living entity and the super soul. The Acharya of Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, Sri Madhvacharya, he describes about 5 types of discrimination. It is called as Panchabhed. There are 5 differences. First difference is between the matter and matter. There are 2 matters, they have differences, like water and fire. Are they different or same? Different. Even 2 matters have different. 2 matter things have differences. Second difference is between matter and spirit soul. If 2 matter cannot be same, how can matter and soul can be same? So there is difference between matter and spirit soul. Like this is matter because this is inactive, and the living entity is the soul, that is active. Third difference is matter and super soul. If matter and soul has difference, so matter and super soul, definitely there will be difference. Fourth difference is between living entity and living entity, that is soul and soul. So there are differences. You are also soul, I am also soul, but there are differences with us. Difference in thought, difference in planning, everything. Our attitude, our way of thinking, everything is different. So the soul and soul is different. And the last, which is very important thing, that is difference between soul and super soul. We can never be same. The soul can never be same as the super soul. Yeah, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that there is slight similarity between the soul and super soul, that is in quality. Quality wise, the soul and super soul, they both are Sat Chit and Ananda. But if you compare the quantity, so the super soul is ocean and the soul is just a drop. So can they be same? A drop of the ocean can never be equal to the ocean. Similarly, we have the differences and the similarity. So Srimad Madhvacharya says about these 5 differences, and that's what Srila Prabhupada is describing, that one should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul. They are different influences. The influence of super soul and the influence of soul. So that also we have to understand. Their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad-gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. If you read Srimad Bhagavad-gita, so the description is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by some random mundane person, that he is giving his own idea. No, Lord Krishna is describing as it is, and every doubt will be clarified. Your any kind of doubt, if you have, so just take Bhagavad-gita, offer obeisances, and with proper faith, you just open Bhagavad-gita. And it has been proven by many devotees that you will get the answer in the very same page which you have opened. So you don't have to go and turn the pages. You just open Bhagavad-gita, start reading, and then you will find your answers. That's what the Bhagavad-gita is like. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everybody to be one with the individual soul, the jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent. As like a potent and impotent has vast difference, similarly the super soul and soul has that much difference. That can never be same. So this is all about this verse. So that's what we have to realize, that the ultimate destination of our human form of life is to reach, is to go back home, back to Godhead. And there is only one way, that is said in, that is given in the scriptures, that Harir Naam, Harir Naam, Harir Naam eva kevalam, Kalau nasteva nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. The chanting of the holy name is the only way. So please chant with us. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hare Hare Bol. Hare Krishna.